77% of Canada's exports go to the United States. Now, imagine if that number suddenly plummeted. Factories shuttered, farms struggling, entire towns becoming ghost towns overnight. This isn't fear-mongering, it's the potential reality if the US decides to play hardball with tariffs. In the next few minutes, we're going to walk you through the economic house of cards that is the Canada-US trade relationship and show you why a stiff breeze from Washington could bring it all tumbling down. Picture two massive gears perfectly meshed and spinning in harmony. One represents the United States economy, the other Canada's. These gears have been turning together for centuries, creating a symphony of trade and cooperation that has shaped the North American economic landscape. The United States and Canada share more than just a border. They share a profound economic relationship that has deep historical roots and an almost unimaginable scale in the present day. This isn't just your run-of-the-mill trade partnership. It's a complex, intricate dance of goods, services, and shared prosperity that has become the backbone of both nations' economies. But here's where things get interesting. This system, as robust as it may seem, is also incredibly delicate. Imagine if someone were to throw a wrench into one of those gears. The entire machine could grind to a halt, sending shockwaves through both economies. That's the reality of the US-Canada trade relationship, a testament to its strength, but also a stark reminder of its vulnerability. Let's take a closer look at some of the key sectors that form the beating heart of this economic partnership. Energy stands out as a critical component, with Canada supplying a staggering 63% of US crude oil imports in 2024. That's right. More than half of the oil flowing into American refineries comes from north of the border. It's not just oil, though. Natural gas and electricity are also part of this energy exchange, accounting for a whopping 30% of Canada's exports to the US. But energy is just the beginning. The automotive sector is another powerhouse in this relationship. In 2023, Canada exported 82 billion Canadian dollars worth of automotive products to the US, while importing 79 billion Canadian dollars. This near-perfect balance isn't just a coincidence. It's a testament to the deeply integrated nature of the North American automotive industry. In fact, about 85% of vehicles produced in Canada are exported, with the lion's share heading straight for American showrooms. These numbers might seem abstract, but they translate into real jobs, real economic growth, and real prosperity for both nations. The trade relationship between the US and Canada isn't just about moving goods across a border. It's about creating livelihoods, supporting communities, and driving innovation on both sides of the 49th parallel. But there's more to this story than just energy and automobiles. The interconnectedness of the US and Canada goes far beyond what meets the eye. Think about the shared infrastructure, the power grids that keep lights on in both countries, the transportation networks that move goods seamlessly across the border. These aren't just convenient arrangements. They're the invisible threads that bind these two economies together. And let's not forget about the human element. Cross-border communities have sprung up along the US-Canada border, with people living in one country and working in another. These communities are living proof of the deep integration between these two nations, where the line between domestic and international becomes blurred. Now here's where things get really interesting. What happens when one country decides to change the rules of this intricate dance? What if, say, the United States were to impose tariffs on Canadian goods? It's not just a matter of adjusting prices or finding new markets. The repercussions could ripple through every aspect of this carefully balanced system, affecting jobs, communities, and entire industries on both sides of the border. The truth is, the depth and complexity of the US-Canada trade relationship make it incredibly sensitive to policy changes. A single decision in Washington or Ottawa could set off a chain reaction, like a row of dominoes falling one after another. It's a sobering reminder of the responsibility that comes with managing such a crucial economic partnership. Let's talk about economic Jenga, shall we? In this high-stakes game, some blocks are more crucial than others. Pull the wrong one, and the whole tower comes tumbling down. That's exactly the situation Canada finds itself in when facing potential US tariffs. Some industries are standing on the edge of an economic cliff, and a single push could send them tumbling. But which sectors are most at risk, and why? The manufacturing sector in Canada is particularly exposed to the threat of US tariffs. It's not just a small piece of the economic puzzle. We're talking about 9% of Canada's GDP and a whopping 70% of total trade with the US. That's a lot of eggs in one basket, and it's a basket that could be about to take a serious tumble. Within this vulnerable manufacturing sector, certain industries are more exposed than others. Think of them as the load-bearing blocks in our economic Jenga tower. The motor vehicle and parts industry, primary metals, plastics, and aerospace products are all teetering on the edge. But it's the steel and aluminum industries that are really feeling the heat. The Canadian steel industry in particular is bracing for impact. The planned 25% tariffs on steel imports could be devastating enough on their own. But here's the kicker. These new tariffs would be piled on top of existing levies. The result? A potential total tariff impact of 50%. That's not just a nudge, it's a full-on shove towards the economic abyss. Justin Trudeau, Canada's Prime Minister, has been quick to point out that these tariffs aren't just a problem for Canada. He emphasized that slapping tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum would boomerang back to hurt US states like Ohio, which heavily rely on exports to Canada. It's a reminder that in this economic Jenga game, sometimes pulling out one block can cause unexpected collapses elsewhere. The aluminum sector is facing a different kind of challenge. While global prices might fall due to reduced demand, there's a twist. Higher Midwest premiums resulting from tariffs could actually offset some of the negative impacts on Canadian aluminum producers. It's not exactly a silver lining, but it does highlight the complex and often counterintuitive nature of international trade dynamics. But let's zoom out for a moment and look at the bigger picture. The automotive sector, a cornerstone of Canadian manufacturing, could see ripple effects that extend far beyond the factory floor. From major manufacturers down to small parts suppliers, the impact could be felt across entire regions that rely on this industry for economic stability and employment. It's like watching a row of dominoes fall. One hit to the auto industry could trigger a cascade of economic consequences. Now, here's a number that really drives home Canada's vulnerability: 76.88%. That's the percentage of Canada's total exports that went to the US in 2022. To put it bluntly, Canada's economic eggs aren't just in one basket. They're in one very precarious basket that's balanced on a tightrope stretched across Niagara Falls. So, what's the verdict? The most vulnerable sectors to US tariffs are indeed the steel, aluminum, and automotive industries. These aren't just important industries, they're the load-bearing walls of Canada's economic house. A significant hit to any of these sectors could send shockwaves through the entire Canadian economy. With the dominoes starting to fall, Canada is forced into a race against time. The country's economic diversification efforts are like changing wheels on a moving car, a delicate balancing act fraught with risks, but necessary for long-term stability. With over 3/4 of its exports heading to the United States, Canada is vulnerable to its southern neighbours' trade policies. To mitigate this risk, Canada has been pursuing economic diversification. The country has signed a range of free trade agreements, providing access to 1.5 billion consumers worldwide. This represents more than just markets. It's a safety net against US policy shifts. These agreements span 51 countries and include CETA and CPTPP. However, these agreements aren't a cure-all. Their effectiveness in cushioning potential US tariffs depends on factors like market access provisions, rules of origin, and the competitiveness of Canadian products in new markets. The Canadian government has launched an export diversification strategy aiming to increase overseas exports by 50% by 2025. This involves investments in infrastructure, resources for businesses, and enhanced trade services for exporters. Success hinges on effectively supporting businesses in accessing new markets and overcoming trade barriers. Some industries are leading the diversification efforts. The tech sector, clean energy, and advanced manufacturing are increasingly looking beyond the US market for growth. These industries represent the vanguard of Canada's economic future, potentially buffering against US tariffs. However, the challenge Canada faces is enormous. The country's ability to pivot to other trading partners is limited by existing trade patterns and export concentration to the US. Diversification is a slow, often painful process. Geographic proximity to the US is both a blessing and a curse. While it provides easy access to the world's largest economy, it reinforces existing trade relationships favoring US trade. Cultural similarities further cement these ties, making it harder for Canada to reduce its economic dependence. Can Canada diversify fast enough to withstand potential US tariffs? The answer isn't simple. While Canada's efforts are promising, they may not fully mitigate the short-term impact of US tariffs. However, the long-term benefits of diversification are clear. A diverse economy is more resilient, better able to weather economic storms and capitalize on opportunities. But for now, Canada remains vulnerable to disruptions in its US trade relationship. As we've explored US-Canada trade relations, the stakes are incredibly high. Prime Minister Trudeau's focus on navigating US tariff threats underscores the delicate balance Canada must maintain. The interconnectedness of these economies means policy shifts can trigger widespread impacts. Every tariff decision ripples through communities on both sides of the border, warns trade expert Dr. Sarah Thompson. I've seen small businesses in Ontario struggle to stay afloat due to sudden cost increases. Ongoing US tariffs could lead to a significant restructuring of trade relations. Canada might need to diversify its trade partnerships while maintaining crucial US links. For those passionate about international trade, consider advocating for stronger agreements or supporting local industries. The outcome remains uncertain, but the economic ties binding these North American neighbors are both a source of strength and vulnerability.